Welcome to the Think Big with Mike podcast, where we are bringing together the top entrepreneurs and investors from all areas to share what they have learned and used to succeed in their business. Education, motivation, inspiration. Subscribe and share today. Now strap in for another episode of Think Big with Mike. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Think Big with Mike, your host here, Mike Gonzalez. And today I'm going to talk to you about, I want to say my latest, but one of the last deals that I've done that I was involved with right before COVID hit, that went into the COVID pandemic era, that went horribly wrong. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that process because, too many times, you hear us talk, and I say us, I mean the speaking heads that are out there, and you go to some of these meetups and stuff like that, and you can hear about a lot of the success stories. And there are a lot of success stories. That's what drives us all. I think we're all addicted to the win. But like we all, if we've been doing this or in your business, if you're in business for yourself, you know that for every big win, there is a series of stumbles and failures and disasters that continue to teach you those lessons on how to move forward in the future and how to get better at what you do. And you should learn from all those mistakes. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I just went through on one of my deals. It just fell apart. It was awesome. But I want to talk to you about it from beginning to end, and hopefully it'll help you and at least guide you and make you understand that, if it's happening to you or something's gone wrong, and you're not the Lone Ranger. It happens to all of us. And we do, like I said, we do hundreds of deals a year now, and it happens to everybody. So if you like what you hear, you learn something, definitely give us a thumbs up. Definitely share and subscribe our YouTube channel. As always, if you have questions, hit us on the comments, or definitely get us over there at the Facebook and the Instagram, and make sure that you follow up, and we'll get with you. I'll definitely reach out for anybody that reaches out for me and lend you a hand, or at least give you some advice, or try to answer your question for you. So let's get started. I was wholesaling this deal that I'd got. It was one of our wholesale deals. This was a very nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. The numbers on it weren't great, but the ARV was solid. The house was solid. The neighborhood was solid. It wasn't an overall a bad deal, but it wasn't a home run for anybody by any stretch. So, when I looked at everything, this was in February. February of this year, I definitely started looking at my options and my exit strategies for this deal. And what I shortly came up with was, listen, we're gonna wholesale this thing out. We had about I think it was a $28,000 wholesale fee tagged to it with our ask price, and it kept it tight, but it was in line, and there was room to negotiate if we needed to. So it wasn't a bad deal. Wasn't a bad deal overall. It just wasn't a smoking deal that I would have kept for myself. I just wasn't in the situation to keep it. So with that being said, I set off to find a buyer, through our buyers list, and I had a few of them. The area, like I said, was a hot area. So I immediately found a buyer, assigned the contract over to them. We shot it over to a title company, and at the time we were using. And I'll save everybody some headaches and some embarrassment, which I shouldn't, but I will. We shot it over to the attorney's office, who was handling a lot of our closings at the time. They used a title company. Both these companies were out of Dallas. The reason why I was using them was we do some work in Florida as well, and they use offices in both Texas and Florida, so it allowed us to go to one place versus having multiples. And so it was just convenient for us. So I'd always had some success with these guys, and so I wasn't concerned when this deal came across. So we sent it over to title, was going through all of our processes, and it was taking a little longer than normal, and I didn't understand why. The seller was getting a little antsy, the buyer was getting a little antsy, I was getting antsy. Kept reaching out for title. They were just constantly waiting on something from somebody else. They were waiting on the mortgage payoff. They were waiting on the O&E stuff to come back in. It was just always something, and so it drug on for I would say several weeks. So probably going on third week, I get notified that the attorney's office is separating themselves from the title company and has moved to a new title company, and that all their contracts that they had in place are moving with them. So I wasn't sure what all that meant. I just knew that, okay, fine, I won't close at ABC. We're going to close at 1, 2, 3. And I just didn't think much about it. So I had to get new forms brought in, new seller's form for the title company for the seller. I had to present extensions because now we're getting close to our contract date. And so we're extending things out a little bit. But I'm rest assured by the title company and by the attorney's office that everybody's got things under control. Okay. They have to start from scratch. So now they have to ask, because it's a new title company, they wanted everything from scratch. So they had to now re-request payoffs, O&E, survey. They were asking for everything all over again. So now here we are waiting again. Seller is not happy. Buyer's patient, but that's okay. We're transferring. About a week after this process, COVID kicks off. Texas shuts down. Everybody starts, I'll say panic, but nobody's doing anything. So the mortgage companies aren't processing. There's not people in the offices to answer the questions. There's just nobody working. And so everything's on hold all of a sudden. So now we're already delayed from the transition process to now we're on hold because of COVID-19. And everybody says, yeah, they understand, but seller's kind of, he's nervous. The house was wasn't being foreclosed on just yet, but he was behind and he was getting, letters and calls. And so he's concerned. I have to continue to keep him at bay, and the seller's fine with it because, quite honestly, when COVID hit, I think everybody that was, sitting on some money at some point was happy if they hadn't written that check yet. So he was A-okay waiting, which I'm sure he was. We fast forward to things start coming back around. It's been about another 3 weeks. And, I'm pushing hard to get this thing closed. The seller's pushing me hard to get things closed. And, the title company's saying, yeah, we're now having to re-request payoff because it's been over 30 days and we now need the new payoff. Seller's been in and out of the buyer's been in and out of the country. So I've been having to wait on him to come back and forth to keep him abreast of what was going on. But now it seems like, okay, good, things are moving forward. Okay, we're actually going to get this thing wrapped up. All of a sudden, the seller says, hey, or the buyer says, hey, due to COVID and due to all this stuff going on, my financing, my hard money guy or whatever, my personal finances are now a little tighter than what they were. I don't want to lose my equity or my earnest monies, but, can you do something with me? Can you help me out? Can we renegotiate a little bit? And basically what I told him is I said, listen, I'll drop the fee down just a little bit. I said, let's figure this thing out, but I need this thing closed. I'll work with you. You work with me. Let's wrap this thing up. He said, fine. I think I ended up with a payoff or with an assignment fee that I think we started off. I think I said around 28, and I think we were sitting around 22 now because I picked up some of the fees and we split some of the costs and things like that. So now I'm at 22,000, which is a great assignment fee for us. We average, just for us personally, we average about somewhere around 12,000 a deal. So this was a great deal for us. We're moving forward. Title company says things are great. We set up a finally get all the payoffs done, finally get all the paperwork done. I finally have the seller who's in the country and he's fine. Everything's great. We set a closing date. Okay. The seller is going to be paying, or the buyer is going to be paying cash for this house. It's written up as a cash deal. Go to closing, the seller signs everything. Not a problem. Signs at closing. The buyer does not sign at closing. Instead, he delays and then says, well, I've had to change, and now I have a hard money lender, and he's sending information over to title. I need to get it done. When this happens, it's close to the end of the month. And if you've ever closed at the end of the month, or near the end of the month, if you delay and you go into the next month, you now have to get new payoff and new numbers on the HUD statement, the new HUD paperwork. So here we are. The seller's already signed. The buyer has hesitated and has now brought in a hard money lender. Title's going to have to rework the whole deal, resubmit for the information, and advises me of what's going on. But what I didn't realize is that all this took place. I thought they had closed. It took them a week to notify me that it hadn't closed, that the buyer didn't sign, but they'd already told my seller. So my seller's been sitting around for the last 4 days knowing that the seller didn't sign, or the buyer didn't sign the closing documents, and got in his mind that a fast one was being pulled on him by us for some reason. He felt like that because he signed and we didn't, as the buyers, that somebody was pulling a fast one on him, and he got spooked and got nervous. So now here I am, a buyer who has not signed, who now has introduced a hard money lender who now wants to push back the closing date so his hard money guy can get set up and fund the deal, and a seller who has already signed and now has been told we're going to have a second closing, that the original documents are now no longer good, but we're going to have to wait for some more payoff information. And it was all due to the fact that our funding wasn't in place. So I reached back out for the seller. Or the buyer, he's good to go. I reached back out for the seller, and the seller is now not taking my phone call. He's not answering my text messages or my emails. So I spend 3 or 4 days trying to get a hold of him. I contact title, ask them, have they been able to get a hold of him? They said, no, they haven't. So finally, after about a week, he replies back and says that he's out of this deal. He no longer wants to sell the house. He is done, that he can't trust anything that we're saying because this deal hasn't gone the way it was supposed to. And that because our funding wasn't in place, that we missed the closing date, that we violated closing. Okay. So I'm in the middle of this tussle between him, the buyer, between the seller, the buyer, and title, because the buyer is saying, no, I'm not backing out. I'm still here. Title just has to redo the paperwork. Title saying, fine, we're redoing the paperwork, but we're going to have to redo everything from square one because it's now a new month. And the seller saying, now he's out. He's done. He gave us our time. And so I don't know at this point who is not closing with who and who's backing out on what. So I reach out for title, and who's our neutral third party group. And I said, hey guys, what is going on? Where do we sit with everything? And of course, title says, well, they don't know. They don't know who's liable at this point. It's not their job to be, saying who's responsible for what. They're just there to say the contract. And now that the seller has said, hey, he's not happy and he wants out, that now title is now telling me that they are not comfortable pushing this thing forward and holding him accountable to the contract, because now he's saying that he doesn't want to move forward. I reach out for an attorney. Our attorney advises us that if I took it to court, I have a good case against my buyer to release the earnest money because he did officially fail to close. However, he is there and ready now to close, and that it's not unprecedented for closings to be pushed back or to be adjusted, and that I would also have a good push to hold the seller accountable and to force him to the table to sell the house under contract. I'm just wholesaling this contract. That's all it is. I'm just wholesaling this contract. Why does it have to be this complicated? Okay? So, long story short is, after all this back and forth, it's not closed. The buyer is now with his attorney reviewing what his options are. the seller has basically shut us down and is not communicating at all. I do have a memorandum on the property. That's the extent of anything that I do have. And I'm probably just going to leave it in place, let it ride. If the end buyer wants to push this issue, I'll be there to walk them through and maybe support as much as I can. But at this point, there's money sitting at title and an earnest contract that I've sent a release over to the buyer, just telling him, hey, look, we had a closing, you failed to hit it. Unless you plan on doing something different, I consider you not signing as a way of not fulfilling your obligation. So I don't know. We'll kind of see how it works. But as you can tell, all this was a simple wholesale deal that lasted 3 months and untangled at the last minute. It got stretched out due to a change in partnership between an attorney's office and title. It got stretched out when the new title company stepped in and had to redo everything. It got stretched out when COVID hit. And then all of a sudden it fell through when the buyer decided to change, the financing terms or the funding terms. So these things don't always go easy. When you're wholesaling, it's not just as simple as getting your contract, finding a seller, finding a buyer, passing it off, and all is said and done, and all you do is collect checks. You are the glue between your seller, title, and your buyer. And that is what you do. You are that pivot that works all three sides and keeps them all on the straight path and keeps them moving forward, from beginning to end. No matter how crazy, no matter how horrible it is, our operation, we're a family operation and there's multiple people that work in this office. However, we work our own deals. So if this is my deal, I've got it from beginning to end, good, bad, or ugly. So that was just my 2 cents, my vent, I guess, on my last catastrophe when it came to a wholesale deal. My next time I'll tell you my celebrations and my home run, but I just wanted to kind of toss out there to you that, let you know that, man, deals fall apart all the time. They're not all home runs, and they're not all easy. They're definitely not all easy. And there's a lot that goes into these deals, and there's a lot that happens that can fall apart. So just keep your head up, keep pushing forward, don't give up. If this deal falls through, make sure you got 3 more right behind it. So I hope this inspired you to kind of keep going, let you know that you're not the Lone Ranger. If you have any questions, any concerns, any comments, heck, if you've been through this process and you want to give me your 2 cents on how you ended up surviving, man, I'm all ears. Drop a comment, find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram, and definitely likes, share, and subscribe. Thanks, you guys, and I'll see y'all next week.